Hello and welcome to the Walk Off, everybody. I'm Scott Belford. Very excited to have our special guest, co-host, baseball Jenn Smith. Thank you for joining us. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Good to see you. Not great to be in to have the conversation I think that we're about to have, but here we are.
Jenn, I have fought off panic the whole time. And if there's ever been a time to be roaming the streets of Toronto screaming panic, this is it. 4 games left. The Yankees have tied them for the division lead, and the Jays have scored one or fewer in 6 of their last 7 games. Not good.
Quite the feat, really. They've just fallen off a cliff.
I actually saw a stat saying that they haven't had a run like this since 1994.
Hmm.
Like, and we know how many bad teams they've had since 94 to now. And this team, we were kind of texting a little bit about it last night, right? You said that this team was performing better than expected and better than they probably are for a lot of the season. And I kind of was like, they also aren't near as bad as they're playing right now. So if they can find some sort of happy medium here, because they have lined up their pitching outside of, by the way, Friday show, everybody. Hello. We are recording this Thursday evening before the game. So if there's any kind of, gaps in the time frame here, that's what's going on. We're not exactly sure how they pull off this series. So I guess let's start with we're talking the offensive skid, starting pitching. They've shuffled the pitching for the Rays series, moving Bieber from tonight to tomorrow, which is something we'll start with here. I do want your opinion on that. Jose Barrios said all the right things, but also came out recently as pretty darn frustrated with getting moved to the bullpen. And I know that I was watching sixth inning stretch there with Whit Merrifield, and he had some interesting takes on that whole thing that we'll kind of dive into a little bit. Umpire shenanigans. My goodness. The game started yesterday with the crowd booing the umpires as they came onto the field. Obviously, there have been some questionable calls to say the least. And John Schneider summed it up best, though, in his post game yesterday, which was more or less, we're not scoring freaking runs. We can't be sitting around complaining about the umpires, which I couldn't agree more with, even though they definitely have had their hand in some of the ways that this has gone. Detroit and Cleveland, we're going to talk the insanity that is those two franchises as we wrap up. And then, of course, how can we not mention Cal Rowley hitting his 60th bomb last night? Just not in a million years, Jen, did I think that this was something we would ever be talking about with Cal Rowley. I love the big dumper. I thought that
I
the
hate that nickname.
you're not alone. His mom also hates it. His mom has come out and been like, of all the things that they could call my son, this is the one that really drives me nuts, and people love it. But the truth is, the Mariners signed him to an extension at the beginning of the season. I felt like maybe they jumped the gun a little bit, him having 2 years of control still. I know that he was one of the best defensive catchers in all of baseball. He's already won a platinum glove. But I mean, at this point, if you have one of the best defensive catchers in baseball and then add 60 dingers to that,
You'd sign up for that all day long.
it's never been done. It's
Yeah.
anyways, we'll get to that. Let's talk some Blue Jays here. Bullpen day tonight. What was your thought with them shuffling the starters here? Shane Bieber giving him an extra day of rest, lining him up for this Rays series. So right now it looks like Shane Bieber game one on Friday. We got Trey Savage going on Saturday, Wonder Kid, and then we also have possibly
Supposedly. Yeah. Gosman.
possibly Kevin Gosman in game 162. What does this shuffle feel like? Because I really am having a tough time exactly wrapping my head around it. Does it just feel like the Jays are at the point where they're looking at the schedule and they're like, you know what? If we line our best pitchers up against the Rays, it's probably the best shot of winning 3 or 4 of the next 4 games. Like, I'm not
It
saying they're punting on tonight,
right.
but
if you take what has been said at face value, in that Shane Bieber needs an extra day of rest,
Mm-hmm.
then okay, then it makes sense that his start is being pushed to, you know, the next day. That's if you're taking that at face value, and we have absolutely no way of knowing whether or not, for instance, he went to them and said, I really do need an extra day here, if we can make this happen. Um, Quite honestly, it looks like panic mode. Like, forget fans panicking. I have seen a few things over the last couple of days. Uh, the Wednesday night game in particular, that looks like this team is actually in panic mode. Forget the fans.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the fans. Fans are going to fan. And ride those highs and lows, and that's exactly what fandom is. But when you see that in the team, right? This is a team that has emphasized camaraderie, that playing for one another, right? They are this cohesive group, and they love each other, and they play for each other, and the fans, and good vibes all around. And I
Best
think,
clubhouse they've ever played in.
right. And I believe that is
Yes.
true. I do believe that that is true, but we are definitely seeing cracks in the armor right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels a little bit like this shuffle is a bit of a panic move. And for the record, I absolutely hate the idea of Kevin Gosman starting game 162, even if it is to try to win the division.
Yeah.
Because if they don't, right? I mean, they have won games with other pitchers. I understand he gives them the best chance to win, but if they're not going to score runs, they're not going to win regardless. And if they ended up pitching him in game 162 and not winning the division, playing in a wild card series, and Kevin Gosman is unavailable, I think people need to be fired. And
It's
this is quite
kind
the
of
turnaround from last week. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry to cut
no,
you
this
off
is
there.
this is so a few things here. Number one, that's a very scary thought that this team is panicking internally. Letting doubt seep into those cracks of the mind is definitely not ideal. And let's face it, the strength of this team all year has been depth. The strength of this
Mhm.
team all year has been that they have not needed to rely on one guy to get things done. And we've seen the offense kind of revert back to what we were seeing in April, which was nobody was able to get it done. And it does feel a little bit like this team is I just keep thinking of that song, We Need a Hero. And it's just like, that has not been the MO of this team. So, kind of starting to shift to that view, even if it's just letting it seep into their mind a little bit, that scares me.
Well, Max Scherzer said after last night's game that you need to look in the mirror, right? You need to look in the
Yes.
mirror and remember who you are. And so I don't know if he was specifically referring to himself or if he was referring to the team as a whole. But either way, yes, these guys need to take a good long look in the mirror and ask themselves who they are and what it is they do, and then they need to go out and actually do it.
And I don't think that this is anything more than where they are in the season. I truly do believe that a bump in the road like this is a squad that could have handled this in early August or could have handled this in June, right? Like there is the ability to compartmentalize a 162 game season, but all of a sudden every game matters. And I'm not
And
it's easy to frame it that way because obviously April games matter just as much mathematically, but mentally it doesn't.
no, and I mean, a week and a half ago, they were feeling somewhat comfortable, right?
And they should have been. They were 5 games
Yeah.
up.
And we said it last week, like literally they're in control, right? They go out and do what you've been doing, win your games, and you don't have to check the scoreboard. It literally doesn't matter what the Yankees do or anybody else, right? You can completely control this. And now here we are, literally 7 days later, and all of that has fallen apart, right? Other If it weren't for that wild card, They lead the division by a wild card by default, if you will.
Yes.
Right, or not by wild card, sorry, by you know what I'm trying to say.
They
They
hold
they
the tiebreaker.
they hold
Yes.
the tiebreaker. I don't know where my brain is right now. Um, and that's a little bit by default, right? Whereas they really could have just been in the driver's seat going into this weekend. And we're not even talking about who's starting game 162. We don't care who starts game
No.
162, right?
I honestly, Jen, I feel a little silly because I was pretty convinced that this series against the Rays wouldn't matter. I really was. And I know I've done hits on the Fan 590. I was on CP24 numerous times in the last week, and I literally have been the guy being like, "No, I still truly believe this team is going to get it together because they have got it together for 150 games prior to this." And I mean, scoring one run 6 out of 7 games, I did not see coming, even with Bo out of the lineup.
No, and if Bo Bichette is that critical to the Jays offense, like if this is actually all being, we can pin all of this on Bo Bichette being out of the lineup, then Rogers ought to just give him a
Yeah,
blank check right
yeah.
now and ask him to fill it in,
Hmm.
right? And then that's that.
As
Um,
frustrating as this is for Bo, there's got to be a tiny little piece of him that is like, that's right. That's
so,
right.
but to go to the other side of that, when he hit the IL, they had a 6 game win streak,
Yeah.
right? So, I remember thinking when he hit the IL, like, oh goodness, like what impact is this going to have? This is not good. And then they won 6 games in a row, and I was like, oh cool, they haven't missed a beat,
Jays are
right?
7-7 since Bo's injury, and they've all been either right after or like it's been lopsided as to how they've accomplished that record.
Yeah, absolutely. But they came out of that looking like they were, every guy was still stepping up, right? Like the same team that they were, getting it done in different ways, right? Winning game, finding different ways to win, different guys essentially being that hero you talked about
Hmm.
each and every night. You got your shirtless Heileman, and look at all these guys, right? And the things that they've done. And in the past week, I don't know where any of that has gone, but when you've got, and I understand this was heat of the moment, but when you've got a veteran like George Springer making comments on the bench about the fix being in, essentially,
Hmm.
right? Um,
Not a good look.
is this in their heads?
Like
Like,
this is what I worry about. And listen, there was a validating sense to George saying that to the fan base because the fan base has been thinking this for some time. I mean, the truth is, most of Major League Baseball fan bases feel like MLB, if they're going to have an opportunity to tip the scale towards the Yankees, they're going to take it. And we don't need to get into the juiced balls on Judge's side, but that is something I was going to bring up when we talk about Cal Raleigh, right? Is that it was proven and found that Aaron Judge in the Yankees games in the September that he beat Roger Maris's record, there were juiced balls. So it's not way out of the realm of possibility. It's not necessarily just a conspiracy. We've seen it happen in the past. But again, to let it seep into the clubhouse, to let it get to these guys, that is just not how you win important
oh,
games.
it's one thing for fans being fans on X or wherever they are, having their little meltdowns and buying into these conspiracies because they're trying to make sense of what they see in front of them. And it's sometimes easier or more fun to go down these little rabbit holes than it is to whatever. And again, that's fine. But when you hear it come from a player, right, and a veteran player at that,
Yes,
right, a World
a
Series
clubhouse
champion,
leader, a guy
right,
they've leaned on all year.
this is extremely problematic, and this is where I go back to, we're seeing the cracks in the armor here,
Mhm.
right? That's what we're seeing, and it feels a little bit like panic. It's not the only thing, but it is one of the things.
So this is from Mike Petrielli,
Hmm.
who I quite enjoy.
Hmm.
Sorry, I'm just trying to pull this up here. Um, Okay, so he goes, I think people really don't get how much randomness rules in playoffs and how finishing strong has absolutely zero correlation to success. He actually does break it right down, and it's
Yep,
true.
I saw the thread.
You
Yeah.
start looking at it and you're like, oh shit, there literally is complete randomness, and how you finish the season doesn't matter. He's like, there's also almost no such thing as an upset in postseason series. Consider what's happening with Detroit completely imploding in Cleveland, killing it. If as if as seems likely, they were to meet in a wild card next week, I'd put something like 50-50 odds on it either way. It's not all that hard to see a week from now being all Tiger Sweep Guardians out of the playoffs. This is true. And I mean, this is one thing for Blue Jays fans to kind of keep in mind, and for the Blue Jays squad in general to kind of keep in mind here. So, yes, they are on a skid. But what they need to do is they need a game today. They need a big performance out of everyone. They need this team to show a little bit of fucking metal, right? Like they
Yes.
need to show a little bit of balls and get this done. And I don't think that that's a crazy ask. Like there's 4 games left, and I hate to keep putting perspective on it. But if you were to ask any Blue Jays fan with 4 games left that they would be tied for the AL East with the tiebreaker against the Yankees, and all they need to do is beat Boston and Tampa Bay to win the division, everyone would take it. And I know that's a cop out almost to even bring up because this is a squad that's been struggling, but that is the reality of it.
We would have been happy with a wild card
Yes,
appearance at the beginning of the season. We would have been thrilled. But bars move, right? Goalpost shift. You
and they
know, when
should.
you and they should, right? Otherwise everybody just gets complacent, including the fan base.
Mhm.
This team has led the division for a good part of the season. And like we said earlier, they were in the driver's seat a week ago. So I think it's absolutely fair to say that losing the division would be an incredible meltdown at this point. It really does feel that way. And I keep saying this team absolutely needs the bye. I don't see how they can figure out the offense if they kind of limp into a wild card series and are playing games right on Tuesday. I just don't see how that happens. And so, John Schneider said last night that they really just have to like play as they've been playing, right? They have to be who they are. So, hopefully, to your point tonight, we get those performances from the guys who have been contributing here, there, and everywhere. But I am going to go in this direction, and some people are not going to like it. It really is time for their superstar to put this team on his back. And perhaps it's unfair to put it all on one guy, but that's what he wanted. He wanted to be the face of this franchise. He wanted to be the star of this team. He wanted to be the leader in that clubhouse. That's what he wanted. He wants to win championships. He has hit 2 home runs in the month of September when in the same night you've got Aaron Judge and Cal Raleigh each hitting two
Mhm.
to his 2 all month, right? And instead, he's getting himself ejected from a game that has crucial importance to his team. And he doesn't even get his money's worth getting kicked out of that game,
Mhm.
right? At least yell and be demonstrative and get the fans fired up, right?
Yeah,
You threw
David Popkins was the face of that of all
right.
guys.
Exactly, right? You didn't even get your money's worth if you're going to get tossed from the game. And I take that back to, again, the cracks in the armor that we're seeing.
Yeah. I do wonder I do wonder where Vlad is at. Mentally. because I do think he has shown signs of leadership we haven't seen out of him
Sure,
before this year. I do think he has taken steps forward in that aspect, right?
absolutely.
And the chips are down now. If
And
there's ever
that's it.
if there's ever been a time for him to show up, and by the way, this is gonna also, I know for everyone who is hating on you for what you just said, they're gonna hate on me for this. I don't think that this is a moment that is going to mean if he doesn't get it done, he can't in the future. I truly don't believe that that's how this works. But damn it, if there's ever been a time in his career, this is it. And I don't know what he has to do to kind of get in that mindset. I don't know if maybe getting kicked out was a little bit of a an attempt at firing up the squad, or if it was a little bit of a temper tantrum. And uh, it,
It felt like defeat. That's what
it,
that felt like because he did not get loud, right? Like I said,
mhm,
he did not get fired up. You want to fire up your teammates? Show that fire yourself, right? If you're going to do the thing, and as silly as it maybe looked, every player knows that that's going to get you tossed from a game,
mhm.
right? When you face the ump and start marking where and he was wrong. That's the crazy part, right?
Yeah.
He was also wrong in it. So all the way around, it was a bad look. But I don't see how getting tossed in such a mild manner and just walking off muttering to yourself fires up your teammates.
Mhm.
I just don't see how that happens. um Alejandro Kirk, who has been fantastic uh up until what, about a month ago.
Yeah.
um you know
We need a little life
toss,
out of him. And this
tossing
is
his
this is the
helmet.
other thing that worries me, Jen, is that Alejandro Kirk, this is the most he's ever played in his
Sure.
entire career. And if there is ever a time for him to be low on gas and running on fumes, it does feel like it would be the end of September of this season. And I'm not saying that that's what this is. Frickin' fingers crossed it's not. But yeah, worrisome there too. And to add on to what we're saying about Vlad, I don't even need him to go out and hit 2 home runs.
No,
Honestly, if he goes out and goes 4 for 4, 3 singles and a double, and drives in some runs and gets the boys fired up, that is what they need from him. They need that Vlad energy. They need that little dance he does at second base. Like, they need a little bit of life here. And truthfully, the first inning would sure be a good freaking time for it.
absolutely. Absolutely. And hopefully that is what we see tonight, but we have not seen signs of that for the past week. So I
Hmm.
really don't know where it's gone. I don't know where their heads are at. I understand, it's a try easier sport, but they all know that.
Hmm.
So, figure it out. Figure it out. This put your big boy pants on and
And
figure it out.
And drop your comments below here, Grounds Crew. Where are you at on Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? I know that this is being released on Friday morning, so everything we're talking about here, we already know how this played out, but please let us know where you are at on Vladimir Guerrero Jr. And I hope you're just dropping comments like, holy shit, did he ever show up? Everything you guys talked about is
It's
in the
irrelevant.
past, and now we're going into this Tampa Bay series, and we have the momentum on our side again. Listen,
Question for
baseball's a
you. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt just because you
yes,
said the word. Do you believe in momentum in baseball?
yeah. I actually believe in momentum in life, so yeah, I do.
I
You?
do too. I do
Okay.
too. And here's the reason why. Because when things start to spiral for a team, they can really spiral. Right? In other words, everything we're saying about it possibly getting into their heads, they're trying too hard, they're pressing, they're getting away from their approach, their typical approach, the things that led them to be successful. This is why I think there is such a thing as momentum.
Now, I
um
do think, Jen, that momentum can flip on a dime.
sure.
I do think that this is not something that is a gradual increase or a gradual decline. I really do believe that, like, a big moment can flip this.
They score 6 runs tonight, and the fans are cheering and screaming, and you've got Vlad doing that at first base
Yes.
or whatever it is. Absolutely, that might be enough to flip that switch.
And
But
oddly enough, a bullpen day would honestly be kind of the perfect way to flip this script
it's
because
something different.
the biggest Achilles heel of this team feels like it is the bullpen. And so to have your low man on the totem pole, if you will, be the ones to step up and win this thing would be massive. And I definitely, here's the truth. Whether it's 2-1 or 6-0, a win's a win, and I'm going to take it.
Absolutely.
But damn, would I like to see the offense contribute in a meaningful way today.
They uh Toronto is fifth on the season in weighted runs created plus with 111.
Yeah.
They're second in F4 behind the Yankees, eighth in team slugging at 424. In September, they are 19th in the league in weighted runs created plus at
Yikes.
94, 17th in F4, 18th in slugging. Um, you know, they've they're really going through it.
They are.
They're really going through it.
John Schneider, after being ejected last night, said, I'm going to have their back. It was probably, honestly, one of the hardest non ejections of my career. It's Vlad. He's our guy, and I want to defend him. But I don't want to feed into the narrative that the umpires are screwing us because we're not scoring enough runs. How did you feel about that press conference last night? And I know that it's pretty much irrelevant because the truth is it doesn't really fucking matter what John Schneider says after the game. They've got to come from within and figure this out in the clubhouse. But what did you think about John's post game comments last night?
Well, first of all, it's true. They are not
Yes.
scoring enough runs. Clearly, if you're scoring 0 runs, that is certainly not enough runs. So, truer words were never spoken. But on top of that, like that is clearly, a throwback to the day before with what George Springer said on the bench and John Boy being John Boy,
Hmm.
and putting out what he did, and you know, you
I
would
don't
like to
think,
think.
Jen, and I will let you finish your thought. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
that's fine.
I do think George did not want that getting out, right? Like, I think that was a spur of the moment thing. And I don't think, and maybe I'm off base on this, but I don't think that he was like, you almost forget sometimes in the heat of the moment that fucking John Boy is right there waiting to just put it out to the whole world.
So that's just it. Like it was heat of the moment, and it actually does suck that guys on a bench can't say things to their teammates or their coaches or their managers when they are fired up,
Hmm.
without the whole, internet watching and dissecting and translating and, you know, what closed captioning
Yeah.
the entire conversation and breaking it down and what spending an hour on it. I don't even know how long that freaking video was. But on the other hand, like he was sitting right there, right? Like he was very visible, George Springer. And I'm not trying, if people listening think I'm like now ragging on George Springer, I'm not. He was very visible, and it was a long conversation. Like he didn't just say one thing and stop. He said one thing and stopped and then said something else. And of course, that's going to get picked up. And that is exactly the reason why John Schneider felt, I think that he needed to say that. I don't think that was even so much for the fans as much as it was just for that clubhouse. Like
And,
let's just get this narrative out of our minds if it's because it's there clearly, or you're not saying it if it's not there. And then let's get back to doing what we need to do.
and I really do wish to know all of your thoughts on this grounds crew. Where are you at on the clubhouse? What do you think of how this has played out with the umpires and the missed calls that have gone towards the Blue Jays, and maybe the fact that some of this is seeping into the minds of the players? Do you think that maybe, and honestly, if you think Jen and I are way off base, I'd love to hear where you're at and what you're thinking here. We will obviously tackle this on Mailbag on Tuesday next week here. Jen, I'm gonna take a bit of a left turn here and talk some Jose Barrios because I still think it's kind of a curious move that they moved him to the bullpen. I don't hate the move, but I also don't like it. It feels weird and it feels like maybe there were other options, especially considering now they're throwing a bullpen game right now. I don't know if I understand exactly the baseball chess game that the front office is playing right now. It does feel like sometimes, and this has always been my knock on this front office, is they just feel a tad too smart sometimes for their own good. And they feel they can game the system. I know that I watched a clip from the sixth inning stretch with Whit Merrifield, where he was breaking down that, and number one, he said some stuff I didn't like. He came right out and said to this day, him and a lot of the people in that clubhouse still feel like Jose Barrios being pulled is why they lost that game in Minnesota. I was at that game. They scored 1 run. So I have a really hard time wrapping my head around how losing a 2-1 game, and again, this is also coming from a guy who just said he believes in momentum. So
I was just
maybe
about to
that's
say.
all it is. Maybe that's all it is, and I'm being silly here. But he did then say that he liked that Barrios was as upset about it as he was, which so did I. I want to see some fire out of a guy who is obviously a horse, constantly goes out there and throws 32 games a year, constantly is between 180 and 200 innings, is one of the most durable pitchers in all of baseball, and is normally hovering right around that 3.85 to 4 ERA. And he wasn't even that far off this year. I know that he had that rough stretch throughout August that kind of is why they relegated him to the bullpen. What are your thoughts on Jose Barrios right now?
First of all, can we just put a huge question mark over the fact that this team somehow went from having 7 starters to 3.5 ish?
Yeah.
Can we first address the craziness of that fact? I have no idea how they got here. And it just goes back to the point that I've been saying for 2 years on this show, which is that they need more pitching.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know exactly what to make of them moving Barrios to the bullpen, other than I think that when they did that, they must have decided in their minds that they would go with Scherzer in the playoff as a playoff starter
Yeah.
over Jose. I think they had made up their mind to that. And so they did their little shuffling around and got to
Do you
have
think
him.
Scherzer's out now? Sorry, I will let you finish.
Yes,
Sorry.
I tweeted last night that there's no way he
Yeah.
can pitch in a
Okay.
playoff
Yeah,
game.
we're on the
I
same
don't think
page.
you can have him start. I don't know why he can't get through that first inning. 5 hits, 5 consecutive hits for 3 runs, and he's done this a couple of times, and the home runs that he's giving up. His breaking stuff is not breaking the way that it
What's
should.
wild is he looked pretty good after that first inning. Like it really
Yeah, I mean
wasn't
he
like a
did.
disaster.
He did, but it's not good. Like let's
No.
just it's not good, right? And I can't imagine that he is starting a playoff game unless there is another injury. I just don't see how they can do it. I don't see how they can run that risk of being down 3-0, 4-0, 5-0 in the first inning.
Hmm.
Right. I just don't see how they can. And I feel like something must not be right with him, whether it's a combination of age plus, early injury that is maybe I know he says he feels great, but maybe it is their, residual impact. I have absolutely no idea. Right. This is a 41-year-old who maybe just simply has seen his, his best days behind him.
Yeah.
And it's sad to see if that actually was his last start. That is really sad to see. But I think they had made that decision, to be completely honest. Because when we talked last week, I was in the camp that Scherzer, maybe a Savage,
Yeah.
but maybe Scherzer. That
Yeah.
was the camp that I was in. I wasn't even considering Barrios, and now here we are. And I think we know who. I think we know it's Gosman, Bieber, and Savage, if they even need three.
Yeah.
And to put that on a 22-year-old, by the way, let's just backtrack here.
Yeah.
Like I said, seven starters counting Lauer down to three-ish, and one of them is a 22-year-old who's literally only started in two major league games. That's quite the turn of
My
events.
honest hope, Jen, is that he is so inexperienced he doesn't even truly understand the magnitude of the moment he's in, and that helps him. Like,
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's got that young guy mentality, that bravado, and just going out there. I have
yeah,
absolutely no idea, right? But at this point, how can you not give him the ball, right?
absolutely.
They
I mean,
have to look at what guys have done recently.
plus we're out of starters to put in the bullpen. What are we like? Like, what
Well,
are we doing
that
here?
yeah, exactly, right? Even the whether or not Bassett actually needed an IL stint, or that was, like you said, just a little bit of finagling of things. You can't even start him in the first round
And
if
if
you
it
want,
was
or a
finagling,
wild card.
they may have finagled their way out of the division because the truth is he's not available to come off of the IL until October 4th.
Yep.
And if they're playing wild card games as of the 30th of September, that could be something that comes back to really bite them in the ass.
It's a lot of moving pieces. We've seen so much happen over the last few days in terms of these decisions. And I think we can make sense of it up until a point. I think a lot of it is, again, I'm going to go back to that word, just maybe a teensy bit of panic creeping in.
What's really funny about this whole situation is it truly feels like we're on the verge of disaster. But the truth is, they win today and they win tomorrow. And I mean, even if the Yankees win both those games, it still feels like this team is in a pretty good spot. And if the Yankees lose one, my goodness, it feels like the podcast we just laid down over the last 40 minutes is almost irrelevant. Baseball.
Yeah, we might be completely irrelevant in 24 to 48 hours, and
Yeah.
that's fine. I'm
And
okay with that,
I'd be
right?
thrilled. Make me
It doesn't,
irrelevant, Blue Jays.
you got to react to what you're seeing, which is exactly what we're doing,
hmm
which is exactly what fans do every single night. And it's what we're seeing from some of the players on the field when they're showing their frustration. You react in the moment, and so here we are reacting in the moment, and it would be fantastic if this moment was fleeting.
Wouldn't it? So let's end on this. Speaking of reacting in the moment and fandom, the Cleveland Guardians are honestly, Jen, there's a reason that it's a historical thing going on here, but I can't wrap my head around what is going on in Cleveland. You look at that team on paper, it makes zero sense what they're pulling off. This is a team that has a -2 run differential, and I don't give a shit about run differential. I'm not dunking on him here, but it is game 158. So let's be serious here. It's a little bit different than the Blue Jays being a plus 30 run differential getting dunked on in July, right? Like
Sure.
this is basically one full season where they have allowed more runs than scored, and this is a Cleveland team that is 86 and 72 with a one game lead over the Tigers. The Tigers had a 15 and a half game lead in July. The Cleveland Guardians went through a gambling scandal where they lost one of their top bullpen pieces and the top closer in baseball in Emmanuel Clase. This is a team that sold at the deadline. This is a team that basically considered themselves out. They said it. The front office came out and basically were like, our eyes on the future. The Detroit Tigers have completely collapsed. I guess all of this to ask you, and listen, I like people are gonna, I'm wrong a lot, so let me just have this one grounds crew. All right, I did say right from the beginning the Tigers were frauds. I felt they were AL Central merchants that were winning a lot of games off inferior teams, and kind of tough to argue that now. Do you think the Tigers even have it within them to get into the wild card at this spot? Because if you look at the standings right now, the Tigers do hold the final wild card spot with the Houston Astros one game back. But with this sort of collapse, it almost feels like something crazy has to happen. But again, we just talk momentum and how things can turn on a dime. So what are your thoughts on the Detroit Tigers?
I don't know how a team does what they've done. We've just spent all this time talking about the Blue Jays needing to take a look in the mirror. I have absolutely no idea how a team can just utterly collapse under the weight of their own success. It
Yeah.
just doesn't seem to make any sense. And with Cleveland, maybe the adversity, right? Maybe that did, cause them to like say, like major league style, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna show them. We're gonna
Yeah.
prove them wrong.
Let's
I
give them
don't
all a
know.
big shit burger to eat.
In the last 21 games, Cleveland has allowed a measly 37 runs.
Unreal.
37 runs. The next fewest runs allowed is Seattle with 76.
Unreal.
And if you want to know, Detroit in that same time span has allowed 109. Jays have allowed 94. So the Tigers were swept by Cleveland. It looks like they might be swept by Cleveland again. It's crazy. I mean, people are Jays fans and Tigers fans should chat.
They really should. So let's end
Fire up a
on
group chat.
let's end on one of the most amazing historical feats that we've got to see in baseball, which is Cal Raleigh, one of the best catchers in baseball. 30 home run hitter over the last couple of years, and he hits his 60th last night. 4 games remaining, and this man has it within him to literally beat the American League home run record Aaron Judge set back in 2021. And I mean, there's not much more to say. It's just, I can't even get over it.
I am a huge Aaron Judge fan. I would run through a wall for Aaron Judge. Statistically speaking, he has had the better season overall.
Yes.
Overall, not in the number of home runs, but overall. But to do it out of the catcher's position, and I believe Raleigh has started 120 games.
Yes, he has. 121. Yeah.
Yeah. To do it out of the catcher position and to provide the defense that he provides behind the plate, and then to do what he's done at the plate is your MVP season. That is your MVP season. And,
I was going to ask you, that was my next question, is where do you lean MVP wise? And I'm with you that Aaron Judge probably numbers wise. I mean, it's such an incredible season. He does deserve MVP, but I lean towards Raleigh because when have we ever seen a catcher do this?
even
We
my
haven't.
my mom is talking about the catcher from Seattle, right?
Hmm.
Like that's how much what he is doing has percolated into the consciousness of people who watch baseball,
Yeah.
but are not focused on the Seattle Mariners, right? So yeah, I mean, all credit to Judge and his season. Incredible player. You can't say enough about him. But I think Raleigh has got to be. I think he is more valuable to Seattle than Judge is to the Yankees.
Which is crazy because
which is
Judge
crazy
without, like the Yankees without Judge have already proven they're not all that good.
Right. Exactly. But yeah, I'm not mad either way,
Yeah.
right? Either which way that people vote, but I would, if I had to bet money, I'm betting that it's Cal Raleigh.
Drop your comments, everybody. This has been the Friday show. Where do you lean MVP wise, Cal Raleigh or Aaron Judge? Fingers crossed that a lot of the stuff that you're watching right now that we talked about, you feel better about. And you can be like, well, at least they pulled out that final game in Boston, and we can breathe a little easy as we go into the final stretch of the season here against Tampa Bay, and just hope that they can hold on to the division. Because, dear Lord, if this is released in the morning and everyone's just even more panicked, not good.
If they're going to get out of it, it's tonight. I
It
think.
is. I agree.
I think if they drop all three to the Red Sox, I think
We
we're in
we got to
for
start worrying about whether they got home field advantage in the wild card then.
exactly. I think if this is going to turn around, it's the Thursday night game.
Cheers, everybody. Go Blue Jays.